So Maester Aemon might be the reason that George is taking so long to write The Winds of Winter, on top of being old as hell and really just an adorable king who probably should have been king, but I'll get back to the Winds of Winter thing in just a second. Welcome to a new segment on my channel, Spotlight Saturdays, where we will spotlight one of the characters from A Song of Ice and Fire and talk about them a little more in depth, starting with, of course, our favorite oldie, Maester Aemon. And the man is old. The man is very old. He lives to be 102 in the main series, which is wild for a Targaryen who all, seem to struggle to get past 30. Not Maester Aemon. He saw these Targaryens dying young and said, hold my beer. And then, the person who was holding his beer died before he did. But Maester Aemon was born Aemon Targaryen, the third son of Prince Maekar, who was himself the fourth son of King Daeron II. And so because there were so many Targaryen male heirs just running about, they thought that might be a problem down the road. So they decided to send Aemon to the Citadel when he was like 9 or 10 years old, just to kind of, get one of them out of the way and make some use of them. But as we've established, Targaryens don't seem to like to live very long, so even though Aemon's father, Prince Maekar, was the fourth son, through some unfortunate mishaps, he eventually becomes the king. But it's still okay, because remember, Aemon is the third son of 4, so he has 2 older brothers, and, the succession is totally going to be fine. So naturally, Aemon's 2 older brothers die, and then Maekar, King Maekar, his father, also dies, leaving the kingdom in a succession crisis. Those turn out great in Westeros, but with the death of King Maekar, the succession legitimately does seem to have, a conundrum on its hands, because it's unclear who should be the next king at this point. And so the hand of the king at the time, who happens to be Brynden Rivers' Bloodraven, who you might know from the main series as the Three-Eyed Crow, the Three-Eyed Raven, he decides, okay, we're going to straighten this all out, we're going to hold a great council. And so they hold this great council where they have all the lords of the land, come together to help make a decision and to decide between the 4 main claimants. Because even though, Maester Aemon had 2 older brothers who had died, each of them did have a child. So the child of his oldest brother, Daeron, was a young girl named Vaela. She was described as being very sweet but simple. Now, I don't know whether that actually means that she had developmental disorders, or if the maesters were just using maester speak to be like, girl, we're not doing that. But she was quickly decided, no, we're not going with that. Next, the child of Aemon's second brother, Aerion, was Prince Maegor. Now, Prince Maegor was an infant, tiny little baby boy. And that posed, a number of issues, because then you'd have to have regents. And then on top of that, there was a lot of concerns about Maegor, because he was the son of Aerion Targaryen, who was himself one of the legitimately cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs Targaryens. He was actually crazy, unlike, a lot of the other ones that get called crazy when they weren't really. But yeah, so they worried that Maegor would inherit some of his father's cuckoo-ness, and they're like, yeah, just too many problems, let's push that aside. Which just left Aemon and his younger brother, Aegon. Now, considering Aemon was already a maester, it should have seemed pretty clear-cut that Aegon should be the next king, but there were some concerns from the lords. Because remember, Aegon had been born the 4th son of a 4th son, so there was seemingly no way that he was going to inherit the throne, and so he was kind of allowed to just kind of grow up amongst the small folk, and so the lords considered him to be half peasant, and therefore, not great to rule over them. So they tried to pull a sneaky switcheroo and go to Aemon and be like, hey, we will make sure that the maesters will release you from your oaths, and if you agree to that, you will become king and everything will be dandy. And Maester Aemon, being the king that he is, went, no thank you, I'm good. And so his younger brother, Aegon, was crowned to the displeasure of all the lords. Now, I know I said that I thought, Aemon probably should have been king, and that's not to say that I think, Aegon, who became Aegon V, did a bad job. He was actually a pretty great king for most of his reign, up until some funny business at the very end with Summerhall. But before that, he was great. It's more just to the point that, remember, Aemon lived to be 102, so technically, had he become king, there's a chance that, none of the nonsense that followed would have followed, because he would still be sitting on the Iron Throne at the start of the series. But I digress. Now, at this point, Aemon was very concerned for his younger brother Aegon, because, the lords weren't too happy for him, and now he's kind of in this precarious situation. So Aemon, knowing that they had wanted to install him, worried that he could still be used in a plot against his brother, and so he makes a pretty big sacrifice, and he decides that he is actually going to go to the Wall and serve as their maester there for the end of his days, so that he can't be used as a pawn against his brother. He also convinces his brother, or might have been Aegon who had the idea, correct me in the comments, to also send Bloodraven, Brynden Rivers, there with him, because, you know, Brynden Rivers had just been pulling too many strings for too long, and we're a little worried of what he might be getting up to. So just to keep everything safe, send Brynden and send Aemon up to the wall where they can be of use and stay out of Aegon's hair. Which they did. They both went up there. Brynden would eventually, you know, disappear into the woods, and we don't know what happened to him, except, you know, he, like, grew into a tree or whatever. But Aemon stayed at the wall for so long that a lot of people forgot he was a Targaryen. At least the younger ones. Now, I know I teased it at the very beginning, but Maester Aemon also might be one of the big reasons that George has, you know, struggled with Winds of Winter and has taken so long to write it, because George killed him in the series, though it was different than the book, but it may have been a mistake. Now, this is huge speculation on my part, and not just my part, the internet. This does not come from me. Lots of people think this. But George stated sometime, I think, after Feast or after Dance came out, the 4th or 5th books, that he had made a really big mistake and killed off a character that he shouldn't have. And because he had killed off a character without thinking of the ramifications of their death and how their, you know, knowledge or place in the world was, you know, desperately needed as an important plot point, he is struggling to bridge that gap. Now, people love to speculate over who this character could be because George has never revealed exactly who it is. But a lot of the internet, and I'm in agreement, think that it's Maester Aemon, and that he was specifically going to be needed to help Dany on her, you know, like, journey, both internally as well as physically, to Westeros. Because remember, Aemon is the only character, seemingly besides, like, maybe Old Man, who is old enough to know a lot of crucial information about the Targaryens and, like, some of the crazier stuff that might have gone down, like the real nature of their family, some of the mysteries associated with, like, Summerhall, where Aegon and a bunch of other people, and dragons and stuff like that, and yeah. Because in the series, Aemon acknowledges the Prince who was promised prophecy and Azor Ahai and comes to believe that it is Daenerys. As he is dying, because in the books, he dies while he's at sea trying to travel with Sam down to Old Town. But while he's, like, you know, having a fever and dying, he starts, like, ranting about the Prince who was promised prophecy and saying, like, we messed it up. We didn't think, the language confused us, because the language in the prophecy refers to, like, Azor Ahai using the same word as dragon, and so that's why they think, you know, it's a Targaryen, like a dragon. But the Valyrian word does not have a gender to it. So they were looking for a prince, they were looking for a boy, and didn't think that it could be a girl. And now, even, like, in his stupor, he's like, of course it's her. All of the signs are pointing to her. It, you know, do something about it. And so he tells Sam, like, you need to, like, figure this out. You need to go to her. You need to help. You need to convince the Maesters to help her out. She's needed to, like, save the realm. But anyway, that's another tangent. But yeah, so because he seemingly has all of this important knowledge that Daenerys is going to need on her journey, the absence of him, I think, has caused some issues for Georgie. Before you say something about, like, ooh, we're never gonna get the books, consider that I get, like, at least 10 of those comments a day, and I don't need yours to contribute to it. It's all good. If you think that, I'm so happy for you. Great. But in conclusion, Maester Aemon is a king in every sense of the word except for the legal one, and we love him on this page. We salute him in his dragony grave, and yeah, okay, goodbye.